I think there are many challenges facing business over the next 3 to 5 years, primarily in Western Europe and possibly the USA. It's the issue of growth from where we are now. We've got a very mature economy, and we're always looking for ways of stimulating growth. So part of what I do, for instance, at the British Library, is trying to inspire and help new entrepreneurs to push forward growth in certain aspects. Innovation is a big thing. Yeah, I think one of the big growth areas for the UK, in my opinion, for the UK specifically, is export. I think the UK manufacturing has been allowed to fall away over the last 30, 40 years. I think it's a great shame. And I think with the increase in robotics, that there is a possibility of bringing back a lot of that manufacturing to the UK from places like China and Asia. Where you're reducing the number of people used in manufacture, and the people maybe of a more technical background, because they're using laptop and computer technology to control the production lines. I was at a factory only the other day in the UK, which produces, I think it's about 25,000 bottles in glass an hour. And it's quite an amazing thing to watch how few people are working there. But nonetheless, the business employs 100 people. So I think that's a very, very big thing for the UK to push toward. And in fact, I've written a letter to David Cameron about this, because I want to try to help British manufacturing. We try to make our mistakes on paper at the planning stage, rather than in real time. That enables us not to have so many terminal casualties. We do, whenever you're starting a new enterprise or whatever it is, particularly something that requires a lot of technical know-how, there will be mistakes made. But if you can make those mistakes on paper, on the drawing board, rather than mid-term, 2 or 3 years into the business, you have a better chance of ironing those little idiosyncrasies that go with any business, and particularly innovation. We are always following all the news. I have an office in Cardiff, and what we do there, for us it's a bit like a war room. And what this does is I have staff there that are looking worldwide at possibilities. It's all about finding something in the marketplace that needs filling, a gap that needs filling. For instance, at the moment we're developing a baby bottle which reduces, some would say eliminates, but I wouldn't go as far as to say that, because I don't think it's possible, but reduces colic and obesity, because the actual bottle, the baby has to suckle on it rather than pouring milk down its throat. So that product was developed by quite an outstanding inventor over a period of time. They came to me wanting to get it into the marketplace properly, and that's really our function, is taking something that an inventor or an engineer has found something, or discovered, or produced something. We take it to the market. So that's the thing. We then analyse the market on a worldwide basis to see where we might push that product. By creating the right workplace for them, the way you deal with people. My business operates what I will call, someone asked me just recently, and this is very important I think, because it does go along with the retention of staff, who my role model was growing up and through my life, who have I looked up to. And I have to say, there isn't an individual. What there is a business, and that business is actually John Lewis, and we operate a John Lewis style of business. In as much as everyone that we have, someone also asked me just the other day how many people we employ. In fact, we consider that we don't employ anyone. What we do is work with people. So everyone in our business is a part owner. So if we had a business that had 11 people in it, all 11 people would share the ownership of that business. No question, I would get paid more than anyone else, but they will all get paid better than they would doing the same job elsewhere and get treated better. So my formula over 40 odd years has been to develop an ethos, a DNA for the business that's interwoven into the fabric of the way we do business, which is working with people, collaborating with people. And so the 11 people in the business I've just described would have ownership of that business with us to a percentage. And then, you know, if the business does well, they share in that. If the business isn't doing so well, they share in that also. So that's how we retain people, and to such an extent that over 43 years, bearing in mind I started in business when I was a kid, I think I've only ever sacked 2 people in all that time, and we may have lost 4 or 5 over that period of time. A lot of people that I worked with 40 years ago, I still work with today within our businesses. I think you have to be prepared to say no. I equally think you have to be prepared to say yes sometimes. And you have to recognise when to do both of those things. So I'm a great believer in leading from the front. I never ask anyone in our business to do anything I can't do or I haven't done. If I walk into a business where they're unloading pallets, and I'm not doing anything for 20 minutes, I'll give them a hand. If I am, I don't like unloading pallets, but I will do it because we've got to get the business going. And we work in a lot of SMEs. I mean, you see, a lot of our businesses are startups and SMEs, and we take them through to maturity. And so you're working in a small business with people, and when you do that, you're part of a team. Cash flow, key, absolute key, cash flow. A good CEO will know what's coming in, what's going out, and when. That's the first thing. Cash flow, number 1. Profitability, right up behind cash flow. So they're the 2 key things. And then it gets down to making sure the business works properly. The way I see a CEO is as the oil on a business wheel. A good CEO knows what's going on within his business, her business. They make sure that if there's something needs doing, that it's done, that the right person is available. They make sure the person has the skill set to do it, recognising sometimes that if you underemploy someone, it's as bad as overemploying someone. So if you have someone that isn't really good enough for a job, it isn't fair on him or her any more than it is the other way around. Because you're putting stress on an individual, you're putting them out of their comfort zone. Being stretched is a good thing. I think the CEO needs to recognise that, but I think they also need to recognise that you can go too far with that and put people into an overstressed situation. So a good CEO will recognise that, and when she's sometimes made a mistake and allowed that to happen, they recognise it and they sort it out. So a good CEO needs to watch the business and understand every part. First thing, most important thing of all, is keep your overhead low. Most new entrepreneurs want to immediately take on overhead. They sell the idea that they need this office, an expensive office. They sell themselves the idea that they can't possibly see customers with the old banger they're driving. They need a new car. Most of these things aren't true. It's not necessary. If you explain to most customers that you're building your business, most customers will respect that. And they will look at the budding entrepreneur and say, this person is a person that will probably survive because he isn't going out and doing all these things. So my advice would be take on as little debt as you can. Really decide whether you need that bank loan. If you do, make sure you read the small print, and if you're going to ask for a loan, make sure that it is enough. There is nothing worse than if a budding entrepreneur needs to borrow 20,000 asking for 12, because you're going to go back to that bank and ask for another 3 or 4, and if you go back 2 or 3 times, they're going to be thinking it gives the impression the business is going the wrong way. Whereas if what I did initially, if I ever had a loan going back many years ago, what I would do is take the loan and immediately take half of it and put it in a building society account. So if I borrowed 20,000, I would take 10 and put it in a building society account, pretend I never had it, and try to make it work on 10. And that meant that, when I suddenly needed to, I'd go to my reserve account. But I didn't have it in the account every day, so it didn't, that's the thing. So I would always say ask for enough if you're going to borrow. Try to borrow nothing, but recognise that if you do borrow enough, make sure that you're covered for the period of time. So, but overheads are a big thing. I mean, people go out, take on car leases. Don't. Invest it in your business. Take on the right person if it's a member of staff. If you need a new machine, invest in that machine. If you've got an old car and you're driving about in an old car as an entrepreneur, there's no shame in that. And the thing to remember is that if that old car breaks down, it might cost you 400 quid to sort it out, but if you've leased one, it'll cost you 400 quid every month. And at some point, if you suddenly don't have that 400 quid, with your old banger, you can leave it and get public transport for a month or 2 whilst you sort your cash flow out. Unfortunately, if you borrowed for this flash van or whatever it is you've got to keep on making those payments, and it can affect your cash flow. So in the very early stages, the fledgling stages of a business of any description, avoid debt, keep your overhead low, and watch your cash flow. That's the most important thing. And spend the money on finding customers, because without customers, without sales, you have no business. Absolutely, I think universities are key. As someone that suffered with my own education because of my upbringing, I'm a great believer in education, and I think people need to remember that entrepreneurs, you can be an entrepreneur in someone else's business, always looking at innovative ways to improve the business. And I think that I get a lot of students, a lot of people come to me from universities. Universities are fantastic for stimulating ideas. Students are always thinking about new ideas. Lots of students want to go into business. They may not want to run multi-million-pound corporations, but they've got a great innovative idea from engineering or whatever, from many disciplines, medical, all sorts. They want to develop that. So I think developing entrepreneurial talent is vital for the economy, and I think universities have got a big place to play. I'd like them to be integrated into the entrepreneurial way of thinking. Universities, I'm absolutely all for that. Passion, as I would with anyone, do they want to do the job they're applying for, or are they just doing it for money? You see, I have a great belief that everyone needs money. We all we need money, we go to work because you can't eat and do the things you want to do. But actually, strangely enough, in my own case, money was never my motivator. For me, freedom was my motivator. So I think with university graduates, the passion. So if someone is coming to us for a job, then I would be looking to whether they really want to do that job. Second is the money, and ambition, passion, ambition, and reliability. There is no point being a genius if you don't turn up. So it's great being a genius, I expect, but you have to turn up. You can't ply your genius trade if you don't come into work. So I'm looking for that also.